the mindset of poor people.
Okay.
Right. So I think you know where I'm going to go with this. But because today I thought it would be interesting that we could talk about this.
Okay, yeah.
The different phases of our life, right? And I think right now compared to years ago, we are in a better phase, right? The first phase, which is no money, like poor with no plan. Then you made more money, but you still don't have a plan. So like quote unquote middle America, let's say. And then, oh, I've made more money, maybe just a little bit more or a lot more, but now I have a plan.
Okay.
Which is either, you know, you're in the rich mindset or you're getting there, right?
Right.
But I want to talk about when we were growing up, right? And you know, we weren't raised with a lot of money. We were poor in a lot of things, right? So I guess I want to first start asking you, when you were poor with no plan, right? Or other poor people that you've spoken to or you met that have no plan, what is like a mindset or like a habit that sadly a lot of people in America that are poor, right? Even middle America people might have this. People that are poor, what's a mindset or habit they have that they got to get rid of because it's detrimental to their mental health and it's going to stop them from making better decisions financially? Like, what do you think? There's something that they got to get rid of.
Well, it's a good question. I think you say it will offend a lot of people.
Yes.
Because a lot of people lack in at least some of these qualities. They might not know it or they might know it.
Okay.
Right? And that is ambition. The want to do something for yourself. Right? And that, unfortunately, I would say you could see it a lot in the poor community.
Okay.
And it's a lack of accountability. Now you could connect that, right? You can connect it to like a victim mindset. A lack of accountability, I feel like it's something that is shown when it comes to people that have no money, but also don't have a plan. Because they're so used to being in an environment where they don't have to like work or they don't have to like strive for something great. They just stay comfortable.
But so are you saying that all people don't have ambition? But like, what if the poor person doesn't have ambitious goals? Like, is there something wrong? I'm just curious. I don't know.
What do you mean?
Like, is it because you're saying they don't have ambition? Like, they're not trying to reach big goals, right? Does everyone need to be ambitious? What do you think? Does everyone need to be ambitious or have big goals?
I mean, I feel like that's debatable, right? I don't feel like everyone needs to have to. It depends what you want in your life, right?
Okay.
Now, if your mindset is, if your dream, if what you want to pursue for in the future is something big, then you need to have a type of ambition that's going to get you there, right? Now, obviously, if you're comfortable and you don't have that mindset and you're glad to stay where you're at, then so be it, right? You don't need to have an ambition. You need to strive for anything. But I don't think that's the case for a majority of people. I think majority of people, either consciously or subconsciously, do want to reach a certain like regimen in life, whether it being super wealthy or at least stable. But to get there, you must put in some type of work. You can't just expect to, be given handouts. And that's what I know is probably a controversial thing to say, but where I believe most poor people fall into. Where they feel very, I don't know. I feel like I speak very biasly because I come from a poor neighborhood.
You mean right now, or you mean back in the day? You're saying?
Well, back in the day, growing up in a very poor neighborhood in Jamaica, Queens, right? Yeah. Being able to see how people went about things, but also, at least at the moment, working in an environment where a lot of people are low income, let's say, right? So I still get to see a portion of what people do and how people think. And I believe that I forgot my train of thought, but
can I ask you a question? It's until you get your train of thought back. You're saying that a lot of these people are giving the handouts don't have this ambition. And it's true, most people have goals, right? But what is it about poor people or poor communities? And again, I know you're not talking about everyone, but the general, let's say the majority. What is it about poor communities or poor people that makes them this way? That makes them not ambitious or like gimme, 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 and like they're not really trying hard to reach the result.
I would say
Like what you've seen in like at work.
I think it's the culture.
How so?
The culture, what people portray, how what people do, right? Because I get it, right? The government. Either way, I'm not a big believer that the government is there to help you, but the government does do certain things to help.
Yeah.
Like the poor, right? They'll give you food stamps, they'll give you some type of voucher, things to help you out, get some money in your account and stuff like that. But I feel like that doesn't promote any type of, growth. Because once you get comfortable and you're constantly getting that, then you just, okay, I'm good where I'm at. I don't need to work hard to get this type of money because I could just stay where I'm at and continue to receive, right? So I believe that's where majority of, unfortunately, the mindset of the poor people are at. And that's what happens when you have no money and you have no plan. When you have no plan, you have nowhere to look forward to go to in life, plus you have no money.
Of course, 100%.
So you have, there's no way.
So then how do you think poor people or people in general who are in this bad situation, how can they get out of it? Like maybe with a tip or technique or a mindset change or something that they can actually do, I don't know, to get out of it or slowly get out of it?
Well, I believe personal responsibility is always the answer.
So how does someone build personal responsibility in their mind or in their heart? How do you build that, do you think? Or in your case, how have you done it? Because clearly you don't think like that anymore.
Well, yeah. Holding myself accountable, right? Because like being the first generation in this country, right? Because our parents migrated, we didn't have it as easy either. But at least we were taught that, you have to go out and work for what you got.
Correct.
So that's being accountable. That's being a man. That's being responsible. Understanding that eventually you have to sustain yourself. Eventually you're going to have to sustain a family. And understanding that going out in this world will teach you certain traits, will give you certain characteristics, or you could develop. And all those, I feel like it's are steps to show you how to be accountable and how to be responsible.
Okay.
Because no one is out here to save you. No one is going to give you handouts. I mean, we can all get lucky at a certain point in our lives.
Yeah.
But are you prepared when that lucky moment arrives? Or are you just expecting to, when that lucky moment arrives, to be given it to you? Because I feel we're all going to get lucky one day, right? We all can get brought an opportunity. But did you prepare yourself? Did you try to work to get there? And then when that opportunity is present in your life, are you just expected to, because you know somebody, for it to be given to you? Or do you have the paperwork, the accolades to show that you deserve it?
Do you have an example of maybe a famous person or someone you know that you feel?
Famous person at the moment? No. I can't think of it.
I think you told me one time I don't know, I could be wrong, maybe I misheard.
Okay.
Stephen Curry and his cousin or something like that.
Stephen Curry's. Oh, okay. Well, oh wow, you just brought me back a memory. I forget.
Be careful.
Not his cousin, his brother.
Steph Curry might watch this.
Right.
All right.
Steph Curry's brother, I believe he's become a great player, at least, or a great role player during this time that he's been in the NBA.
Okay.
But I don't feel like a lot of people would have maybe grasped to his talents, to his hard work, if it wasn't because of his big brother's name. Right? But I do feel like he has put in the work eventually to earn that spot. Now to make a name. But that's just like a brother superior, an older brother, you could be a younger brother, having talent and being able to bring someone up, but that person knew also how to play the sport.
Okay.
Now I think a better example, I don't want to downplay anybody, but it would be like someone. I know there's also many brothers in the NBA, and
go ahead, you can be controversial.
What's his name? So I don't know if you know. They call him the Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He has a brother in his team that's called Tanastis, I believe, and
in the Bucks, right?
In the Bucks, Milwaukee Bucks, not the greatest of players, but he's just a reserve. He's just someone that sits on the bench. And I don't know how he has a contract, but because his brother's a superstar, I can already imagine,
Okay.
For you to keep me, you have to have my brother on the team. So, but that's all politics. That's political stuff. That's just deals.
Do you think there's a correlation to these two examples you gave to what you were talking about, or about like the opportunity? Did you work for it? A lucky shot?
Right. I mean, I feel like this topic is so broad. I don't want to get too lost into it.
Gotcha.
It's just people need to show that they have some type of ambition if they want to get somewhere in life.
Gotcha.
And they can't show a lack of accountability when it comes to that. Because at the end of the day, that lack of accountability, I feel like that victim mindset is a cope that disguises negative traits in your life.
Okay.
So I feel like if you're able to do that, then you wouldn't fall into this category of no money, no plan. You would eventually move up in life. But what do you think about it?
I would say, and this is going to sound bad, so let me explain. Poor people, and I would put myself there back then. I fell in the same trap. Poor people built something called a slave morality mindset.
Okay.
Slave, and I'm not trying to talk about black people being slaves, and I'm not talking about that, because when we're talking about poor people, it's not just black people. It's also there's tons of white people in this country who are dirt poor, right? You go to Missouri, Louisiana, all that stuff. Hispanics, right? Like us, we're both Hispanic. There's poor people all over, right? What I mean by slave morality mindset is this. This was a concept that a very famous philosopher, a German philosopher, came up with, that he thought of. He wrote about it. There's the slave morality and there's the master morality. But I'm just going to talk about the slave because that has to do with the poor people, right? Usually, the majority of a country or a group, the majority of times people are poor or middle class, let's say, right? So he wrote. So I wrote this. I thought this was basically the slave morality is when the poor person or the poor masses or group of poor people react. The way they react to oppression is by vilifying the oppressor. So what does that means basically is that when poor people are blaming the rich or the government, or they're putting the blame into the people who are doing better than them. And what then the poor people then do is, what they're doing is that they are calling themselves righteous and good people, right? By what they lack, they make it into a value system. Now, I'm going to explain what that means. So, for example, let's say we got a rich person here and we got the poor person here. The rich person has wealth, right? The poor person has no money, right? So what is the poor person going to say now? He's going to say, well, I'm a good person. That wealthy guy over there, he has all this money. He's a greedy person. I don't have a lot of money. I'm a simple, humble person. I don't have greed, right? So what did he just do? He's making the rich person into this bad guy, or like, look at him. He got everything he wanted. He was just lucky, or he was born into money, or, he had better circumstances than I did. I had no chance. He has all this money. Why? Because he's a greedy person. I don't have all this money, so I'm not greedy. This, right? The person who is wealthy, are they poor? They're not poor, right? They have all the money, right? But he can say, I'm humble. I'm a simple person. I'm humble, right? The rich person can also have a glory of fame. They could be whatever, famous for whatever reason. The poor person, a person who is not known, can say, I'm a humble, simple person. I don't need anyone to know that I'm famous. That rich person, he's a narcissist. So do you see what's happening here? Mm-hmm. Right? Or like, that person over there, the rich, they're so powerful in politics and everything. But you know something? All that politics and all that power they have, they're really corrupt. They're wrathful, right? I don't have any of those things. I'm a simple, humble person, and I'm not wrathful. I'm not violent. I'm not corrupt. So what they're doing is basically they're putting blame on someone else. They're not taking accountability, like what you said, right? And they're just they need to find a scapegoat. That's the term. They got to find someone to blame. So they're going to blame the rich person because they're like, this is unfair. So because life has been unfair to me, I deserve to be called a good person because I've suffered. I'm poor. I don't have much, and I've suffered, and I've gone through so much stuff that person hasn't probably gone through. So they make themselves mentally feel good, right? By not blaming themselves, right? Because a lot of times people are in denial, right? Now, of course, I'm not saying that all poor people in the whole world, they can get out of their situation and they can improve it. Obviously, I can't say everyone because maybe there are certain poor people in certain countries, not America.
Yeah, I would only stick to when we're like America, because I think everything else is unfortunate.
Correct. I would probably say America, maybe Europe, right? Because where people have
first world countries.
First world countries, correct. Because maybe third world countries, people don't have those opportunities, right? But let's say from first world countries, especially this country, right? Unless you're disabled or mentally or physically, then maybe you have an excuse. But putting those people to the side, so poor people build up this slave morality mindset, right? And they're in denial because a lot of times, and you kind of mentioned this, people fantasize. I want this. I want to be this famous piano player or this famous player, but they're in love with the result. They're not in love with the process.
Not in love with the journey.
Yeah. They're not in love with the journey, but they love the result. But in reality, what's really happening? They want the result, but they're not willing to put in the work. So they're really in love with just the result. They're not in love with the work, which means that they don't really want it. Because if you really wanted something, you would do it. If you really wanted something, you would do it 100%. And this is what makes us humanity. This is what makes us humans amazing. Have you ever heard of the philosopher Immanuel Kant?
No.
He says something he basically says this: what makes humans so unique from the rest of the universe is that we have the ability to put the direction into our lives. We have the ability to change our fate. We can do that. Of course, with God's help, but putting God to the side, humans have that ability. We have the ability. Nothing else in the world or in the universe can do that. A rock stays a rock. You know what I mean? Humans, we can change. We have the potential. That's the word. The potential to do that. So poor people, you need to get out of denial, and it hurts. What I would say is a two-step process. You got to get out of denial. You have to get out of denial. And the way you do that is how? You need to use your free will. In order to use your free will, you got to use your free will. I think we've said this before.
I think that's a very interesting point, getting out of denial, regardless if it being true or not, right? Because a lot of people will blame, favoritism or racism or the white people control this.
Yeah.
They got connections here, they got connections there. This person gets a handout, I don't. Regardless of it being true or not, stop giving yourself that excuse. Because you don't know if you actually put the work in, how could things end up?
Correct.
Because if we keep putting ourselves that excuse, then that might be true, that might not be true, but you'll never know if it was true or not if you don't put yourself in that situation or try. So
true.
That's what I was going to say when it came to
and also maybe
the part.
Person who got the handout or got the good connection, just like what you said earlier, maybe they did the work. And superficially,
we might not see it.
Correct. Because you only see a certain perspective.
Right.
right? You know how like in those movies,
Yeah.
it's like you see, oh, this is my perspective, but then you're like, let's look at the backstory, and it's a whole different story.
Right.
Whole different story, right? So, right, I feel like a lot of these poor people, you got to get out of denial. Forget what other people are doing. Focus on you. Get out of denial. It's going to hurt, but you got to get out of it. And then number two, you have to ask yourself a question. And this is something that Mark Manson, he wrote a book about this, is basically you have to ask yourself, what pain am I willing to suffer? What pain am I willing to suffer? If you can ask yourself that question and you can think, okay, this is what I really want in life. I'm willing to work 60 hours a week, do tons of overtime to get to that goal. I'm willing to play 5 hours to become, 20 hours a day to become the NBA player. Whatever the case is, I'm willing to suffer for this amount of time to reach that goal.
Right.
And you actually do it. So if you get out of denial, you forget what everyone else is doing, and you realize, hey, listen, just like what you said, even if it's true or not, this is my life. Their life does not, I have no control over that. I only have this, and I'm in the now. And what pain am I willing to suffer? I think if people would think like that, and these are just simple things, you will get out of that poor mindset. Poor mindset with no plan.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you.
100%. And I think that's what you have to do. But so let's say now the person does that. So now they change their mindset. So now let's say they actually made a little bit more money.
Right.
And maybe you want to talk about on how you went from being poor to making more money. Maybe briefly you could talk about that. But now you made more money with no plan. Is there anything in particular you want to say? Because this is where middle America falls. 80% of the United States, I don't know if you knew this, 80% of the United States is middle America. Then there's the 10% of the wealthiest in America, and then the 10% that's the most poor in America.
Okay.
But 80% is middle America, and right now, where you're making more money, but you have no plan. That's middle America. What would you say about that?
I feel like majority